When it comes to what people think, few individuals have more insights than our next guest. Jim Clifton is the chairman and CEO of Gallup Incorporated, known best for its in-depth Gallup polls. And what Clifton has learned over the years, he has put into a new book called The Coming Jobs War. I was able to sit down with Mr. Clifton after he presented a global briefing at Oklahoma State University. Well, Mr. Clifton, the 20th century has often been called the American century. We're now in the second decade of the 21st century. Simple question, how are we doing?
I think we're going to be okay. I don't think we're doing real well right now. I think unemployment does not actually portray what really exists in the job market. It says, I think they say unemployment's at 6 or 7. The number of people as a percent of the population that actually have a good job is the lowest it's been in over 30 years. That's measured by the Department of Labor. And 40 million Americans woke up this morning with no job at all or being grossly underemployed. As a percent, that's the highest that's ever been too. The truth of unemployment is not what you read in either the Wall Street Journal or you hear from Washington. They're both special interest groups, but God bless them both. You and I'd probably do the same thing. But I'd rather be holding our cards, United States cards, for sure, than China's or Germany's or anybody else's. But to imagine that the country's on the right track right now is not right.
So staying here domestic, we have seen our GDP go down. What does that mean for the average Joe?
Jobs, no jobs. The problem is that that most jobs come from small business and new business startups. Let's make it simple. All jobs do. They don't come from big business. That people think they do, that's a myth. And the problem is that small businesses, there's about 2 million kind of pumping, juicy businesses. It's our own, I call it an ecosystem, our own rainforest. It's not doing well. Their confidence is way down. When it's down, there aren't new jobs. That's bad. The other one is that when new businesses start, new business startups as compared to failures is the worst it's been in 30 years. And so that's why we don't have new jobs.
Is underemployment just a fact of life in this what's been called a jobless recovery?
It can get pretty serious though. If I'm an engineer out of work, and remember, if I come over and mow your yard, I work for 1 hour or more, and you pay me $20 or more, according to the Department of Labor, I'm not unemployed. But after I've been in that condition for about grossly underemployed for 18 months, it's a pretty desperate situation for me. Gallup meticulously interviews those people every month and you're 4 times more likely to have clinical depression if you've been out of work or grossly underemployed for 18 months or more. So it's very serious.
Can these hard times, can it make more entrepreneurs in this country?
No, I don't. The reason I say that is it should, and we can. Let me be real clear. But it won't unless leadership makes the development of entrepreneurs as intentional as we have masterfully done over the last 200 years intellectual development. Entrepreneurship has been left to chance, and that's a pretty deadly game for Americans to be playing right now. I'll give you one little thing. Businesses have been starting over the last 12 years at about 500,000. That's real entrepreneurial activity, the ultimate activity to start a business. 400,000 die. So the net is 100,000. That works pretty well. Those two didn't meet, they crossed about 4 years ago. So now we have 400,000 starting and 500,000 dying. So entrepreneurship's not doing well.
Now, I've heard you be a little bit critical about our focus on innovation and say it probably should be more focused on the entrepreneur.
If I come across as critical, I don't mean to be. We're giving it the wrong expectation. We think if I invent something, jobs come. And that's mistaken. That's why we keep putting billions and billions and billions and billions into innovation, because we so desperately need jobs and we so desperately need GDP growth. And billions and billions, neither one of them is coming out of it. So we need innovation. I think we have a gross oversupply of innovation and a gross undersupply of business models and people that turn them into customers and then into jobs.
What is the role that the federal government, the state government, and the local government play in all this?
I think they should play, the more limited role they play, the better. And I don't just mean that as a free enterpriser and as a capitalist. They're not really supposed to be in this business. It should be local business leaders that make this happen. I don't think we should look to Washington for help. Washington's main job is security and elections and all the obvious things that we learned in in general politics. But and same thing with local government, you know, police and fire and all that. God bless them all. But I think we get in trouble. I'm a businessman, but if I look at Washington, or I live in Washington, D.C., the government there, I'm from Nebraska, if I look at the government there and say, where are the jobs? I think the citizens are looking in the wrong place. It really bothers me, too, because we better not be voting for people that we think are going to get us jobs, because it just doesn't work.
How do you feel about the American workforce? It gets criticized a lot, that it's underskilled, and that we need to have a more skilled workforce.
Well, yeah, but you got to begin with this. That is that it is the very best workforce in the world. Pound for pound, we're the best in the world. This workforce is more innovative. We're better at winning customers. We've been better at exporting, and so I'm pretty high on that. The place that we're missing is find early identification of rare talented entrepreneurs, people like Steve Jobs and all that. We've got to make that intentional rather than random.
You know, we've long thought of upward mobility, the American dream, something that we have just here in the U.S. But is it also not becoming a global phenomenon of just where?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. The divide, the divide is worldwide. But it's so important. You know, America is such a mosaic of different sub-tribes and sub-societies. So you have a huge divide, well, in New York City, for instance. But if you get to these other towns, Austin or Nashville, you know, where their GDPs are booming and new companies are starting, it's like you're on a different planet if you're in Nashville or Austin. I mean, now if you go to Memphis or Detroit, God bless them both, I mean, the divides are just, I mean, spectacular and profound. We got a lot of new stuff coming in, too. People say, well, when will manufacturing be back? Okay, let's give a good, clear answer. Never. But what could fix it is you got fracking, and cracking follows, the factories around it and all that kind of stuff that make the derivatives of that kind of oil and that sort of thing. You've got nanotechnology coming in, never-ending drones, and you know the mini robot thing is still taking off. We'll get at least the first generation of those. I think there's no limits to what we can do with the middle class and in jobs that are less intellectually, cognitive demanding, I think is what they call them. Mm-hmm. But I'm very optimistic about that, but to think jobs are coming back is, I think that's far-fetched.
So can we expect a new type of middle-class job? It may not be something that can be put somewhere else offshored, but a new type of highly skilled, certificate type of job.
Yeah, definitely. Workers' relationships with universities are going to change. I mean, it's a lot to think about that, you know, Michael Dell, Larry Ellison, Steve Jobs, and the Facebook guy and
Zuckerberg,
and yeah, all of those guys. None of them went to college. You know, if they did go to college, or just for a minute, but
all technically astute.
Yeah, but an awful lot of these jobs, from fracking and everything else, they're going to have a technology base. But how well you can use the internet, or the thing we all have in our pocket, that's your university right there. But you wonder about if you and I are both sitting at a table and I'm better educated. So I don't know. Let's say I went to MIT and you went to, I don't want to pick on anybody, but West Nebraska State. Okay. It'd be a better question in the near future. Don't judge them on their pedigree. Get a computer out and see which one of them can go deeper into it. Okay. And so, but that could be a big equalizer for us.
Yeah, well, and I know even major corporations like Boeing are looking more at skills than they are on degrees. Let's move on now to exports. We're 5% of the world's population. Just the simple laws of supply and demand tells us that there's some opportunity out there. So what should we be doing in this country, knowing that we're 5% of the population, 95% of the consumers are out abroad?
You know, one of the things we got to do is we've got to say, who are our best friends in the world? And our two best friends, this is the answer, Canada and Mexico. You got a third? Nope. Those are our two best friends, and nobody else is close. And that's because we export, our biggest export customer is Canada, over 300 billion. Mexico's 200 billion. And then if you take all of China, hell, it's not even 100 billion. Mexico is way, way, way more valuable. But we export more to Mexico than we do to West Europe. All those the 5 big states, that's only about 150 billion. But to export, I think that we need to consider some people call it convergence, but we have so much in common with the Americas. there's a whole bunch of us that are all Americans up and down there. There's unlimited amount of things that we can do together there with exports. But then the second thing I would do is I'd rekindle our friendship with where all of us came from. Not all of us, but so many of us came from, which is West Europe. But see, then you get controlling interest of the world again with economics between those. I sound like I'm paranoid about who's going to control the world, but you get the point.
Final question. You talked to both civic leaders, business leaders, and students while you were in the state. What was your main message to them?
With students, my main message was that it's a very difficult time in the market, but there's a way to position yourself that makes a lot of difference. But it begins with knowing your strengths. You got to get your strengths together and position yourself around your strengths. All the development that you do, develop your strengths. Weakness is never correct. Very few people know that. Strengths develop infinitely. Make that your development plan. When you go into businesses, let the business know that you love free enterprise. Don't hedge and say, well, I'm not sure about profitability or something like that. Demonstrate that you know customers, that you've had customers, that you've won customers, because companies need that. If you're going to specialize in one, this is the time to play on the offensive side of the ball, not the defensive side of the ball, because everybody needs customers. The other message was that for America to come back, we've got to make the development of entrepreneurs systematic, and we got to get better at exporting, or it won't work.
Jim Clifton, thank you for your insights.
Okay, thank you for your interest.
Now, if you'd like to learn more from Mr. Clifton, we have linked to his chairman's blog where he discusses what really motivates today's workers. Just head to okrising.com and look under our blog section.